All right, so today we're going to talk about Aristotle's virtue ethics, which is basically the second major ethical framework for the semester. If you felt that Kant's theory was too rigid, that you really couldn't apply it within your daily lives because we are imperfect human beings, then you might appreciate Aristotle's virtue ethics a little bit more. His virtue ethics theory is a lot more flexible, a lot more fluid, and it's a lot more contingent upon the context, right? So it's not as if we have these universal moral laws that we have to apply the same way in every situation, right? It's going to differ based off of the context. So Aristotle believed that all natural beings are moving towards a teleological goal. Teleology just means that we all have a purpose or an end that we're striving for. And the goal is different for every species, but for human beings, we are all trying to achieve eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is a deep type of happiness. It's a fulfillment. It's living up to your potential. It's a top of Maslow's hierarchy, if you're familiar with that, right? It's being able to go beyond our pleasures, going beyond our bare needs, going beyond what makes us maybe content, right? So it's something a lot deeper, doing things like traveling, for example, or learning something new, or publishing something, or maybe having a family, or doing something to help other people, right? Those can all contribute to eudaimonia. But eudaimonia is never to be confused with the pleasure you get when you have a pumpkin spice latte on a cold fall day, right? It's something much more deeper than that, and it's also much more unattainable, right? It's a lot more difficult to achieve. But as human beings, we're naturally moving towards eudaimonia. That is our teleological goal. So virtue then helps us achieve eudaimonia as human beings, not only for ourselves, but for other people. But you might ask, well, what is virtue then, right? If I need to act virtuously, or if I need virtue in my life, then what is virtue? So virtue is a habit of excellence. It's a consistent habit of excellence that we embody through our characteristics. It becomes part of our personality. So virtue is not supposed to be something that we do one day and then we can be viceful the next day. It's something that we characteristically embody through our actions, right? So it becomes a habit. It becomes a part of our everyday behavior. So it's a consistent habit of excellence. And there's two different types of virtues. So the first type of virtue is intellectual virtue, which is cognitive. It's about wisdom and truth and knowledge, right? Being able to know, rationality, being able to be clever, right? Those are examples of intellectual virtues. Whereas moral virtues have to do with doing the right thing when it comes to helping other people or engaging in caring behavior. But moral virtue is something that cannot be taught, right? Intellectual virtues can be taught, but moral virtues have to be something that we learn for ourselves throughout our lifetimes. So examples of moral virtues would be temperance and self-control, for example, or truthfulness or loyalty, right? So you have these two different types of virtues that fall into the larger umbrella of virtue ethics. So the ethics of care is mentioned in the text you had read, and the ethics of care is not something that Aristotle himself created. It's something that more contemporary philosophers created using his virtue ethics. And so the ethics of care focuses on caring, loving relationships as a foundation of morality. So we're not just thinking about abstract ideas of justice and duty and fairness. We're thinking about how we can interact with one another on an interpersonal level, right? We're all immersed in the world where we are caring for other people or other beings, regardless of our role in life, whether we're a parent, a teacher, a child, a student, right? We're all engaging in caring actions. So what gendered ethics does is it takes this ethics of care a step further and says that based off of our gender identities, right, we have a different focus when it comes to ethics. So based off of how men and women have been socialized in our society, the ethical theories tend to differ based off of gender. So think about how Kant really was about these abstract ideas of duty and justice and fairness without really talking about real interpersonal relationships. And so this has been an issue for most of ethical philosophy, most of ethical Western philosophy, because most theorists have been men. So of course their theories are going to reflect that. Just like feminist ethics of care is going to focus on feminist values and ideas of care and love and sympathy and loyalty, things that people embody on an everyday basis. But a gendered ethics basically says that, hey, we all have a gender, and so that kind of informs our ethical focus, that informs our ethical theories. And so men tend to deliberate on these issues when they are creating an ethical theory, and women tend to deliberate on these other issues when creating an ethical theory. But they're not saying one is better than the other, right? They're just saying we perceive the world through a gendered lens, through the way we're socialized. But they're not saying also that men naturally think about these things or that women naturally think about these things. It's just an outcome of how we have been socialized and raised in this world. So that was just kind of a brief overview of Aristotle's virtue ethics, how we're teleological, we care about eudaimonia, this deeper type of happiness and flourishing, and then how virtue is a means of achieving that eudaimonia, not only for ourselves, but for other people, and then how virtue ethics has been applied within our contemporary society with respect to an ethics of care and gendered ethics.